The first video I made in this series was based on 1860s fashion. This one is, I think, a more popular history-bounding decade, and one in which I definitely want to make at least a few pieces for myself. So while the last video was just something I made on a whim, this one I've put a lot more thought into, in order for it to be as useful to me and others as possible. So, the goal: to create a small capsule wardrobe based on 1890s fashion. Let's say 12 pieces. I am designing it to my own aesthetics, obviously, but I want to make it something of a template, so that it would be easy for another person to swap out specific colors and styles to better adapt the capsule to their tastes. By simulating my ideas, I want to identify important details, trends, and key pieces that can help pull off the look, but which are versatile and wearable in a modern wardrobe. I'm basing most of the designs off of patterns in the Keystone Guide, which is much more than a standard pattern book. Instead, it is more of a guide to pattern creation, helping you to understand how almost any Victorian ladies pattern can be drafted from a single base bodice pattern, how the bodice front and neckline can be altered, sleeve volume fine-tuned to your preferences, and collar types interchanged. 10 out of 10 do recommend. For the details of the designs, I'm looking for further inspiration from fashion plates, extant pieces, photos, and a bit of 1940s-ish vintage. I quite like the latter half of the 1890s, as the styles became for a short time simple and elegant, with a bit of a masculine edge, focusing more on beautiful fit and construction and less on opulence and lace. Ideal for history bounding.
The first piece is one that I actually have fabric for, and one that has been on my list the longest. It is a simple walking skirt, shortened to T-length. Victorian waistbands usually didn't show, so they were simple. However, since the skirt is quite plain and I would likely tuck a shirt in, I want there to be some interesting element to the waistband. I'm going to lift the style of this vintage skirt's waistband, adding a peak and a bit of contrast. The fabric I have for this skirt is a heavy, dark brown boiled wool, with some lovely color variation when you look closely, so this will be a very practical and warm winter piece. I would like to find a darker brown velvet for a contrast piece, and I'd like to bind the hem of the skirt in either the same velvet or a wool braid. This was historically quite common, as the skirt swept the ground and the hems wore out quickly. With a modern shortened skirt, this will not be as big of a problem, but still, hems remain the first to go, and it is a lovely nod to the sort of utilitarian details I love most about historical clothing. The second piece will be made from the same fabric, and it is a jacket based on the simple, tightly fitted jackets worn in writing habits. There is something I really love about those jackets, though I can't put my finger on it. I love the simplicity, the high collars, the subtle soutache detailing you sometimes see. I would modernize the fit of it, making the proportions more to a modern standard, but I would still make it very structured and tight. I love the idea in history bounding of using historical jacket styles and making them to wear indoors, akin to how a modern blazer is worn today. I like this idea because dressing nice when it's cold out is the biggest challenge I've had sewing my own clothing. I can't knit, and I don't think knitting is on the charts for me to learn, ever. So hello historical jacketing! The third piece is the shoes. Yes, let's go ahead and get the shoes out of the way. I don't know how to make shoes, but the tan and brown Manhattan boots by American Duchess are incontrovertibly Victorian, and I think they would go beautifully with my earth-toned color scheme, though if you are more of a fan of charcoal palettes, they also make the same boots in black and gray, and several other Victorian styles just in black. For the fourth piece, I want to do a dress. Dresses aren't the most versatile choice for capsule wardrobes, but I think I can make an exception for this beauty. This is my all-time favorite Victorian walking dress, and there is very little I would change to modernize it. Shorten the skirt, for sure. I would probably get rid of the epaulettes and shoulder detailing, cut off the sleeves, and bring the detailing at the wrist up to the cuff of the new short sleeve. I would also lose the high collar and have the neckline end at the last strip of braid. The original dress, in the museum description, was made of black, white, and lilac tartan, with white lace over a yellow backing. This is not great for my color palette, so I would probably design a fabric and print it with Spoonflower or My Fabric Design. I would make the tartan brown and cream, with rose instead of lilac for color. Probably ivory lace with an ivory backing, and a brown braid for all of the lattice work. For the waistband, I could use a remnant of the skirt and jacket set from before. For the fifth piece, let's do another skirt. I want to make a lighter, more summery skirt, maybe from a silk in a deeper rose color, complementing the rose used in this dress tartan. I'm mostly following the soutaching design of this extant piece, but below the cording, I want to add a section of crisp pleats, like you sometimes see in other skirts. Since this skirt has plenty of interesting detailing, I think that the waistband can be narrow and simple. And coordinating with this skirt, for the sixth piece, a matching jacket based almost directly off of the jacket that goes with the original soutached skirt. I like the idea of having a jacket that is open to show more of the blouse underneath, but I don't want any type of bolero or open jacket, or a jacket that originally would have been secured to another piece beneath. For modern practicality, I think it needs to have at least one point of closure, so this jacket is a perfect base, though I think I will change the collar a bit and narrow it in. The first jacket had very slim fitted sleeves, so I'll give this one a bit more poof at the top. And I'll add a bit of soutashing at the front of the jacket and the wrists of the sleeves, in a style and cord to match the skirt. Then I made an overcoat, though you can ignore it because I found it to be redundant, too outdoorsy, and not distinctively 1890s enough, so I discarded it. For the 7th piece, another skirt. This one of a medium weight and in tan. This is meant to be the most versatile piece, light enough for summer but warm enough for the winter, so a lightweight wool might work, and in tan the most neutral color. I'll keep the decoration simple to maintain the neutrality. Make the waistband in a contrasting fabric, and add a band of contrast trim near the hem. For the 8th piece, pants, because it is simply mandatory to celebrate some of the first culturally normalized women's pants in European fashion history. Not the men's-style trousers or breeches women previously wore beneath their skirts while riding, nor the first suffragette bloomers, but real pants designed for women. Pants intended to reflect the new measures of freedom and activity in their lives, but still patterned elegantly and accommodative towards the current fashionable silhouette. I'm illustrating these wide leg pants based off of a bicycling outfit, and I would make them from a medium weight fabric, maybe a twill, something sturdy but still comfortable and breathable. And I like a lighter caramely brown for the pants, still quite versatile, but not matchy-matchy with any other piece. I would probably make them a little longer than the skirts, but not full length, about the length of capri pants today, and I don't know if the placket of buttons down each leg serves an actual function, but it's a cool detail and I'd be remiss to leave it out. For the 9th piece, a waistcoat. I don't love waistcoats myself, but I can see the practicality of them for an extra layer of warmth in the winter, especially when wearing an open jacket like the red one. And also, I just don't feel like an 1890s capsule would be complete without a waistcoat. I think I'll make it double-breasted, since I haven't used that variation yet. And this one will actually get a pattern. I like the idea of using striped silk at an angle, something that features the browns, but also the rose shades, and maybe another complementary color pop. I'm just going to use a generic striped pattern for now, since I don't know what kind of silk I'll be able to find if I was actually going to make this, so consider this pattern a placeholder, to see how well this piece can match with the others. For the 10th piece, a shirtwaist. I would probably make this out of a lightweight ivory cotton, and I would add the waistband, which seems a wonderfully practical way to keep shirts neat and tucked in. For this blouse, I would leave the sleeves long and full, though not as full as the original sleeves would be. I'll do crisp box pleating down the front, and I like the idea of using this keystone collar, which is praised for its practicality, able to be styled both standing up or folded down. Because of the collar style, I would probably have the shirtwaist button up the front, but I'd like to try and hide the buttons beneath the box pleating, if possible. For the 11th piece, another shirtwaist, this one more summery. I would make it out of a lighter white cotton, maybe cotton lawn. It would have short but still poofy sleeves. I'd like to use a yoke since the other shirtwaist didn't have one. Instead of the box pleats, I would just use tiny gathers, more loose and informal. Summery. I like the tall Victorian collars, and since this shirtwaist is more feminine all around, I'll add narrow lace around the tops and bottoms of the collar, the sleeves, and the yoke. Might as well make the yoke from lace too. And for the final 12th piece, an accessory. They say it is the accessories that sell an era. The Victorians certainly had a wealth of accessories to choose from. Hats, gloves, canes, parasols and handbags, brooches, jewelry, ties and bow ties, all manner of capes, capelets, shawls, and wraps. I'm sure there are others that I don't even know existed. For this capsule wardrobe though, the one accessory I find most crucial to sell the Victorian look is a hat. There are all manner of hats that I could make, but I think my favorite is the small, round, fairly flat type. It could be straw, or covered in silk. I think I would decide that when I got to it. It would be decorated with ribbons, flowers, and hopefully a little fake bird, using shades of rose, red, and green to coordinate with a few colorful pieces in this capsule. It's looking pretty good so far, but now that I can see all 12 pieces together, I think I can spot where I want to make some revisions. The tan skirt strikes me as too plain, and the brown jacket is too covering, especially when compared with the open red jacket, which shows the blouse underneath so wonderfully. I think, for the skirt, I'll just get rid of the contrast band at the bottom, and instead I'll do a simple bit of soutashing, like the fashion plate I was originally basing it off of. For the jacket, I want to try combining elements of the brown jacket with the discarded tan jacket. Bam! Okay, this is much better. It has an open collar, and the upper collar can be made with the same contrast velvet as the brown skirt. And if I patterned the collar right, maybe I could make it changeable, with the collar able to be folded down like it is now, or folded up and buttoned to the top, like the original brown jacket. I'm not 100% sure I like the flared skirt around the jacket, but maybe if and when I get around to making it, I'll alter the design then. So let's see how we did. I'm thinking this looks really good. Of course, if I started making these pieces one by one, they would evolve as I went. The patterns might change and details would be added, and the way textures of real fabrics played with each other in real life would look very different from the flat-colored illustrations. But for a simulation, I like it. The hard thing about most Victorian decades is that the clothing we see in collections or fashion plates mostly consist of ensembles, dresses, and complete looks with matching jackets and skirts. These are not great for versatility, so while I allowed the use of my favorite walking dress, I did have to ignore a lot of iconic 1890s styles, simply because they were too limiting to use. I do like the decision to make most things neutral, only a couple colored, and the only pieces to utilize patterns are the dress and the waistcoat, which is the only pairing that the waistcoat would not be useful for anyways. If I was going to add one more patterned piece, it would probably be a skirt, in the same fabric as the waistcoat. Okay, I really love this dress. It almost looks a little 1940s, and it looks great with both of the jackets. Okay, yeah, I'm making this. It's only a matter of time. And the pleated long-sleeve shirtwaist. Looking good so far. During the summer, the sleeves could be rolled up, less historically accurate, but more use out of the piece. The collar can be rolled down or turned up, depending on the look you want to go for and the pieces you're layering it with. See, look. Up, down, up, down, up. This shirtwaist strikes me as very, I'd like 50 pounds of corn, 10 pounds of salt pork, and can you add it to my account, please? Shirtwaists are only slightly different from modern blouses in the details, so it would be a very subtle thing to add to your wardrobe. And the second shirtwaist. Oh, I like this. Very lovely and summery. This shirtwaist is ideal for running up a windswept hillside towards the sea during early spring, heart thumping as you clutch your hat and an unopened letter. The waistcoat is nice, though again, I've never liked vests much, and I'm not sure if it's something I would actually wear, other than potentially for warmth during the cold months. But it does look good, very early career woman. With the short sleeves it still works, though it does look a bit off. Maybe that's because it would primarily be worn for warmth, so we're not used to seeing it worn as a fashion statement with short sleeves. Okay, let's add a jacket. Okay. I'm still not sure about the bottom flare of the jacket, but I like the front and the neckline. I like how simple it is. The colors work well together. It's very businesslike, very off to get things done. And the lacy shirtwaist just adds a whole layer of dimension and texture. I think having a lace yoke just makes the standing collar more prominent, and I like it. Now the red jacket is beautiful, and it pairs so well with everything. That red jacket brown skirt combination is a bit familiar somehow. I've tried to keep the pieces simple and versatile and a bit middle class, but the red jacket just classes everything else up. And with the lacy shirtwaist. Man, this shirtwaist just keeps getting better and better the more it's paired. It just adds so much interest to the whole outfit. And adding the waistcoat beneath the brown jacket for warmth, it mostly gets hidden, but it adds a very subtle pop of color, which looks nice with the folded collar, but really draws attention to the lacy collar. And adding the waistcoat beneath the red jacket, it is a lot more visible, going from a subtle detail to a prominent statement piece, slightly overshadowing the detail added by the lace collar.
I think usually when people talk about capsule wardrobes, it is directed towards having too much clothing and deciding what to get rid of. But the concept of a capsule wardrobe can be incredibly useful if you're just beginning to make your own daily clothing, because it can help you plan out and sew versatile, practical pieces, fleshing out and transitioning your self's-own wardrobe much quicker than by aimlessly fumbling. Trust me, I've got experience with that. So there you have it, my thoughts on 1890s history bounding and a paper doll simulation of how different types of pieces might interact and affect the look you are after. If you've been looking for inspiration and direction, I hope that this video inspired and directed you. If you were just looking for simple entertainment, I hope that you were entertained. And if you just randomly clicked the video and have no idea what I was talking about, welcome to Historybounding. Historybounding is the art of adapting historical style into your modern wardrobe, and it is so much fun. For myself, I am actively planning to make at least a few of these pieces, maybe a few more now that I've seen their potential. So if you want to stay tuned for the progress I make, go ahead and subscribe.